So I'm back at everybody's favourite, slightly eerie charging location, and I would love to tell you that I've managed to get my hands on a concept electric MG3. MG have been long rumoured to be electrifying the MG3, their little hatchback offering. But unfortunately, my ZS EV is in for some warranty work, and it's courtesy car time again, and this time they're giving me a petrol MG3, so not quite as exciting, but I know that some of you are quite interested in the MG brand and the other cars they offer, as well as the electric offerings. So let's take a look and see what it's like, shall we? The first thing I noticed when I come in here is just quite how well equipped this car is. This particular model is the Exclusive Nav, so the top of the range. I think they only actually offer two trim levels. You've got the Excite and then the Exclusive Nav rather than just Exclusive. So the similar kind of setup to the ZS EV, nice and simple really. A handful of colour options, two trim levels, keeps it nice and easy. Must be quite good from a manufacturing point of view if you just churn out a bunch of both trim levels rather than having to worry about specific factory options and all that kind of stuff. And you notice just quite how well equipped it is. So I've got air conditioning, I've got electric mirrors, steering wheel controls, I've got a touchscreen infotainment with Apple CarPlay, and I'm sure there's a bunch of other stuff as well. Electric windows, front and rear electric windows, and I'm sure lots of other stuff that I've missed as well. So you're getting quite a lot for your money. List price of this car, £13,600, which even at that, it's probably quite competitive. So I don't really see this as a Fiesta, Corsa competitor. I'm not sure that people looking at those cars will also be looking at these, but it's definitely a square competitor for the Dacia Sandero. Very similar size, similar kind of money, possibly similar kind of quality, similar kind of expectations. I think they'll be quite well matched. And actually, you can often pick these up for 10, 11 grand pre-registered or ex-demo. I imagine when they're finished using this one as a courtesy car, it'll be available for that kind of money. And it's a bit of a different proposition really at that kind of cash, isn't it? You're actually price-wise competing, apart from the Sandero, you'd be competing with, say, the Citroen C1, and those kind of like really, really small city cars. And this is definitely much bigger than that. Much bigger in the cabin, much bigger in the boot. Size-wise, definitely Fiesta, Corsa, Sandero, definitely that kind of size of car, but a little bit cheaper. And it seems like, in a typical MG fashion, they've packed in all the features, but is it any good? Well, let's take it for a drive and find out, shall we? The first thing I noticed straight away, every time you turn the ignition on, it resumes the radio at volume 4. I don't know why, but it does. And so no matter what it was set to, when you turn the ignition off, it goes to 4 when you turn it back on. Now I gather that the ZS EV actually used to do that before the Comfort 2 update. And after it was updated, that was one of the things that was changed, was they changed it so that it would maintain your last volume setting. It's a bit of a strange one, isn't it? I guess the petrol ZS probably does the same, and maybe it hasn't been updated. I think the Comfort thing was very EV specific. I don't think they did it for the petrol cars. So I find that quite interesting, but that's a minor thing. You'd learn to live with either listening to the radio on volume 4 all the time, or just turning it down when you get in. I'm sure it wouldn't be the end of the world. It would irritate you though, and you know, I guess like they're odds and ends with my ZS EV, right? Where the costs have been cut and they start to irritate you a little bit, and this will do that. But got a strange one. It's got a 1.5 petrol engine, which is in a small car like this these days seems a little bit over-engined. 105 horsepower, I believe, we get from a 1.5. Might be wrong on that. I will double check that, and if it's wrong, I'll put a little idiot note on the screen for you. But all in all, you know, it's not a powerhouse. Off the line, I've got a very slow driver in front of me, so I can't quite demonstrate the power. Off the line, it's a little bit slow to pick up, but then it does seem to be there. It seems to be okay for a small car. I think some of you are going to say, well, you're used to driving an EV and you've got sort of instant power and instant torque, and yeah, but I've driven enough petrol and diesel cars to know when sort of a good one from a bad one, or a powerful one from a not so powerful one. And it's a little bit sluggish for the size of engine, the fuel economy, the tax band. I think that it could be a little bit quicker, but it's not too bad. Certainly the engine sound seems reasonably shielded from the cabin as well. Obviously you'll hear the engine when you accelerate, but it's not too intrusive, it's not too bad. The road noise, however, there's quite a lot of road noise in here. But then that's to be expected. It's a small, cheap car. I don't expect it to be particularly well insulated in terms of road noise and stuff. And certainly the ZS EV is just the same. You just notice it differently because you've got different noises in the cabin from the electric drivetrain rather than the engine. But it's not too bad. I can't imagine a Corsair Fiesta is much better either, to be honest. I'm sure I could compare them side by side and not really notice that much difference. So all in all, it's not too bad. It's a little bit boomy sort of road noise wise, but it's all right. I find this speedometer a bit strange. I'll put a picture of it on the screen. So 30 mile an hour is actually towards the bottom, and we go all the way up to 130, which is obviously a little bit ambitious, but that's nothing new, right? But it's the way they've grafted in the fuel gauge means that the speedometer is a little bit displaced, and if it was actually sort of where it normally is, 30 was a bit further up and stuff, it would maybe even feel a bit quicker than it is, because you're always in the sort of lower end of the speedometer all the time, and it's just a bit of a strange design really, but it's not too bad. I have noticed there's a little bit of a rattle from the steering column, which is a little bit ironic given that my ZS is in for work on its steering column today, so maybe that's something MG need to work on. You definitely notice the familiarity in here. The steering wheel, window switches, air vents. There's a lot of stuff in here that you'll also find in the ZS, and they've got that sort of design family thing going on, which is something MG have been quite bad at until now. You're churning out different models that actually all look completely different from each other, and even sort of the front end on this and stuff, it's all quite designed, it fits in, whereas I find there's something like the MG5, for example, or the GS, or the MG6, which obviously they don't make those two anymore. They were all kind of disjointed, they all looked a bit different, whereas, you know, a more mature car manufacturer you'd like to see making cars that all have the same kind of design language. And certainly you've got the MG3 and the ZS, certainly side by side, you know, they definitely look like they're from the same manufacturer. If you covered up the badges, you would definitely still be able to tell they were made by the same people, which is a good thing. And I think it's quite a nice looking thing, this as well. I mean, the styling's maybe not to everybody's taste, but compared with a lot of other sort of small hatchbacks on the roads, I think it's quite nice looking. It's nothing special, but then nothing like this is, right? It's a little hatchback with a 4-cylinder petrol engine. It's not going to be the object of your desires, and I don't think you can be too negative about its looks. I think it looks all right. I think it looks quite modern, quite progressive. I think I've picked the wrong road to talk to you about performance and handling, unfortunately. We've got a bit of a queue of traffic and no overtaking opportunities. Not that I'm 100% sure that we've got enough power and I'd get up and go for much overtaking, but yeah, I don't know how good we're going to be at evaluating its performance, but I think certainly once you get over the fact it can be a little bit lethargic off the line, it seems to be seems to be okay at sort of the in-gear acceleration and stuff. You don't need to constantly drop a cog just to go a little bit faster. I know we do have a 5-speed manual gearbox. If those of you who have been driving EVs for a while, if you remember what one of those is, it's okay. It feels a little bit notchy, but then it's probably more a cheap linkage than a cheap gearbox. It changes gear fine. I mean, this is a 70 plate car with 2,000 miles on the clock, so you would hope the gearbox worked alright. But it feels a bit notchy, and I think I would put that maybe down to a little bit of cost cutting in the linkage itself rather than anything else. And again, exactly what you'd expect, you know, something like a Sandero or a similar kind of car, a similar kind of money, it's pretty much the same. I can't really say it's good or bad, really. It's pretty indifferent. And I think if I was driving one of those competitor cars, I'd say exactly the same. And I know you'll all be wondering about the infotainment system. So, as you know, I'm no fan of the one in the ZS EV, and some of you had your pitchforks out when I mentioned how much I was not a fan of that, and its various shortcomings, which are undeniable. And we've got a very similar system in here. We've got the coloured blocks with all the functions, and clearly, you know, maybe probably not the same software engineers, but certainly somebody at some point signed off the design, because it's not the same, but it's if you put them side by side, you could maybe tell they were similar. And what I have noticed is it's actually, this one in here, it's quite snappy, it's quite responsive, and even things like the CarPlay, it's a bit faster and a bit more responsive, and I'm surprised by that. Obviously with the ZS EV costing about 3 times at list price anyway what this does, or maybe at least twice, 2.5 times what this does, and this has got a better infotainment system in it, well, at least in terms of responsiveness. Sound quality and stuff, I don't think there's much in it. We've not got Bose or anything like that in here. You know, the speakers are all right, but I was quite surprised to find that at least the touchscreen interface and the sort of performance of the unit are better than what's in the ZS. Now, maybe that's because it's doing less. Now, whilst the head unit in the ZS EV won't directly control, you know, the driver aid functions and stuff, which it has many, but this car doesn't. You know, your MG Pilot, your lane keep assist, all that stuff. It at least has an influence on them, because you can turn them on and off using the head unit. And I don't know if that means that it's just doing a lot of extra processing that isn't going on in here. So it's got a bit more free processing capacity and a bit more, you know, memory and stuff for your core functions. You know, the radio, the sat nav, and all that stuff. There's one theory. I'm not entirely sure. But certainly, I was shocked to find it's quite snappy, it's quite responsive. Okay, finally got a clear bit of road, we can see which is made of. Driver like a lone car should be driven. That says 60 miles an hour. Yeah, it gets there, you know. You got to wring its neck a little bit, you got to work the gearbox, but it's got enough power. And having seen the long-term fuel economy over the past 2,000 miles since this car was new, is hovering around sort of 33, 34 miles to the gallon. You probably don't want to be wringing its neck. You probably want to be taking it gently, because you're going to be spending quite a lot on fuel. But I guess that's the nature of any sort of just straight up petrol engine these days. That's why you have so many of these tiny little 1 litre turbos, because they use less fuel for the amount of performance you get from them. And that's why I do think it's a bit odd that you've got a 1.5 in this, in a little car. It doesn't really make that much sense to me, but I'm sure MG know what they're doing. But maybe it is that these are cheaper to produce and more reliable, less warranty claims. I don't know. I'm sure there will be a good reason for it, but it's odd these days to get a sort of half decent sized petrol engine. Not that the performance seems to reflect it, but the fuel consumption certainly does. But it's all right. It gets you up to speed. Handling wise, it's not the last word on anything. It doesn't bounce around and roll around as much as the ZS. Obviously, we're in a little hatchback and not an SUV. But it's also not hugely sort of confidence-inspiring or anything like that. Again, it's a little hatchback. They don't tend to be particularly confidence-inspiring. Some of them are, yeah. I guess you want something a bit sporty. You know, you got a sporty version, something that's been it's got better suspension on it and stuff, you know, Fiesta ST, something like that, yeah, they'll corner like they're on rails and all that, but just a basic sort of cooking model one, it's not going to set your world on fire in terms of handling either. And try not to be too negative, because I know some of you go, oh, you're just moaning. I've got an MG3 and it's the best thing since sliced bread. And, if you like it, fine, but I'm just calling it how I see it. And comfort is definitely not one of the things on the list. We're going for an overtake, drop a gear or two. Ugh, cold. I actually forget how much of an effort it can be to overtake on sort of single carriage roads where you've only got a little engine and a manual gearbox. You've got to ring to get there. I mean, that is perfectly capable, gets you there. You wouldn't want to make a habit of it, but if you're passing slow enough stuff, it's alright. Yeah. I actually really think that an EV drivetrain would do wonders for this. If we lose the sort of lethargic petrol engine, I mean, even put a little turbo petrol in it. I'm sure they've got a 1 litre turbo unit that they put in the ZS. Stick that in here, and that would probably improve things as well. But all in all, where's the electric version, MG? Come on. It has been long since rumoured. Quite a lot of people talk about it. Oh, I can't wait till they electrify the MG3. I've never actually even seen like a concept or anything like that, but people seem convinced they're going to do it. I think Autocar did one of those things where, you know, they do some bullshit render and say it's coming. Even though it's got no basis in reality, and people are like, oh, that's definitely going to happen. We're going to see that car next week. 10 years later, where's the electric MG3? But it's amazing what people believe if it's printed by a sort of fairly mainstream magazine, right? If I said it, you'd be like, yeah, it's bullshit. Never going to happen, but Autocar seem to get away with it. But, you know, if they do it, I think this will be all right. Because, like I say, handling-wise, chassis-wise, it's all right. It's pretty decent. Now, I don't know what it would be like if you stick a load of batteries underneath it. But it's not too bad. It's not, you know, a complete waste of space. I'm sure the MG aren't going to be rushing to give me a press card anytime soon, are they? The MG3, it's all right. It's not a complete waste of space. Yeah, I'm not sure that'd be what they'd be looking for. So I think you can tell this isn't a sponsored video. I genuinely have been given this car because my car is in getting fixed. So I'm very much calling it how I see it. I haven't been paid to tell you how crap this car is. Not even by Kia. As someone suggested in the comments on one of my ZS EV videos, oh, Kia are paying you to slate the ZS, aren't they? Yeah, that's right. They paid me to go and buy an MG ZS and then tell you all how crap it is. It's a funny old world, but there we are. But yeah, I'm not sure I'll be making friends in any press departments anytime soon, but this thing, it's just a whole lot of meh. It works. Will it get you to where you want to be? Yeah. Is it worth the 11,000 quid? Is it worth £13,600? Definitely not. But a pre-reg bargain, 11 grand, maybe a bit less, maybe 9.5 or something if you can get a good deal and get an ex-demo that some idiots ragged around the country for a bit. Yeah, maybe. Would I buy one? No, probably not. So I do think the Dacia Sandero is a better buy than this. And I'll stand by that. But it's fairly smart looking, it's fairly well equipped, they're cheap to buy, and so if you like it, yeah, crack on. Don't listen to some gobshite on the internet tell you what to do with your money. Just because I wouldn't want to buy one doesn't mean that you shouldn't. I honestly do think that there's a place for these in the market. I think these will be a really good buy when they're, you know, 4 or 5 years old, probably not worth very much. I think they'll be a really good buy then for a cheap little run around. Obviously someone needs to buy them new for them to then be available second hand. So yeah, and I imagine these are available really cheap on sort of PCP finance deals as well, you know. What's it going to be, 140 quid a month, something like that? I don't know. I honestly don't know, but I can't imagine they're expensive. So if that's your bag, you know, having a new car every couple of years and not having to worry too much about maintenance and that, it's all included, then yeah, it's probably not a bad package. I do think you should maybe consider some of the alternatives, but it's not a bad all-rounder really. I do quite like the styling. I quite like the weird sort of tartany effect stuff on the dash. I'll show you a picture of the plastic on the dash. I think that's quite funky. I'm not sure what's going on with the fake carbon fibre below it, but yeah, I think it looks quite good. The interior is quite nice looking. Little bit cheap and plasticky. Obviously, as all reviewers will tell you, any sort of cheap car, oh, it's a bit cheap, and yeah, nobody cares. Nobody strokes their dashboard. It doesn't really matter. I find the door cards a bit weird. They've sort of forgone putting any fabric on them. Just have this kind of textured plastic. A bit odd, but again, easy to clean, I suppose. You know, I'm not going to get hung up on that kind of stuff. It doesn't really make any difference to you in the real world. Air conditioning seems pretty good. And if literally you just want a little shopping trolley to get you around, you know, these are the things that matter, right? It looks like a little hatchback. It drives like a little hatchback. It's okay. Buy it, don't buy it. Not sure the world will care either way. I really am that indifferent about it. But to be honest with you, I'm feeling that indifferent about a lot of petrol or diesel cars. It's not an MG thing. It's not necessarily a slant on the MG3. It's just meh. So there you go. So there you have it. That's the MG3. Bit of a mixed bag, really. Not quite sure what to make of it. It's okay, and it's quite cheap. I don't know if I can say much more than that. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm sure it's going to divide opinion. Some of y'all love it, some of y'all hate it. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.